Hello guys, today we'll have a little code review of a Livewire component, but this is not about Livewire. This is a general code review of what can we improve here in terms of Laravel and Eloquent and Blade and other stuff. So the story is that I received a question, had a conversation with that person by email, and then I realized that his code is a good candidate for a general code review because it would be useful to other developers, mostly juniors. So let's just go through this and see what we can improve. It's a Livewire component, but you can treat it as Laravel controller with route model binding to list the teeth. It's for dental practice. So you go to a record of a patient and then you choose the appointment. So this is the appointment ID in the URL. And then you click on teeth and you can calculate the prices and there will be more functionality here. So that's the application, and that page is controlled by this Livewire component with appointment model automatically resolved by Livewire from route model binding. Now, the mount model in Livewire is the same as kind of constructor in Laravel controller, and let's see what is happening here. And my first comment about that code is about comments. Would you agree that this code is hard to read just because of the amount of comments? I get the idea, so the comments would be useful and explain what the code does, but does this really bring any value? Create blank chart is a good naming, probably, for a method, and that comment is unnecessary. And in general, commenting every line is kind of getting in the way of actually reading the code. Some of the comments are really valuable. For example, this line, return a collection of all teeth preserved and treated. So this collection method and operation is not fully clear right away, so the author explains that it's preserved and treated teeth. That is a good additional comment on top of the code. But most of the other comments, I would delete them, to be honest. The next point is about variable names and general naming things sometimes. So for example, variable check. Check what? And that's why, by the way, they need a comment if the current appointment is void of treatments. So this should be the variable name for that. Is appointment void or something like that, or no treatments, and then use it here. But actually, even PHP Storm underlines that. There is no need to have a separate variable. First, we replace that like this, as the PHP Storm suggests, and then we can actually cut and paste and move it to here, and we don't even need that variable at all. So actually my plan was to talk about check as a variable name, but I ended up refactoring that whole thing. But even here, the first, name first what? First appointment probably. So that should be the name of the variable. Then merged is also not that clear. So yeah, naming is quite important, especially for people like me who would be on your team, other developers who would read that code for the first time. It may be yourself in the future, by the way. Also keep in mind that future developers may have zero knowledge about the topic of dentistry or whatever the project is about. So they need to understand what that preserved and treated teeth even are from the code, from variable names and method names. Next, there are small things to be improved, like for example, order by ID ascending. Ascending is the default variable value, so it could be just order by ID. But I will not stop on such small improvements, and also they are kind of personal preference. Sometimes I want to stop on a big improvement, which is related to the amount of queries. And here we have a classical n+1 query example. So we have 32 teeth here, and we're building the chart with, for now, empty chart. It doesn't really matter that much what's inside. What matters is in the blade file of that Livewire component, which may be a blade of a controller, we have this. We have the list of teeth, and for each teeth we need the code. And inside of that code method, we have this. Well, two things wrong here. First, probably calling the controller method from the view is not the best thing because the logic should be in the controller passed to the view before, so the codes should be grabbed in the mount method, and in fact they are. While building the blank chart in the very beginning, we actually do tooth all. So why can't we assign the codes immediately here, like code, tooth, code here, something like this. The result of that, before any optimization, is in Laravel debug bar down below. We have the amount of queries, which is 43. A few of those queries are legit and okay to have appointments and patients and treatments, but then we have this long list. Select from teeth ID 1, ID 2, and others. So we have 32 queries, one for each tooth to the database. So to avoid that, I would load the code in here and somehow get that code in the collection. So in here we have tooth ID, or actually let's make it to the end. So this teeth codes, for example, would be teeth key by code, like this. Here we don't need the codes, and then we define those teeth codes as collection, public collection, probably this one, and teeth codes. And then in the blade we call teeth codes with tooth ID as a parameter of that array and code. I think so. Let's try it out. We refresh and we have undefined array key. So what is our key? Oh, we don't need to key by code. We need to code by ID. This is our element key parameter. Now if we refresh, yep, it works. So now we see all the codes of the teeth. The code is basically the number of tooth. So ID 1, for example, can correspond to code 18. And now we have, instead of 43 queries, 11 queries. And final note about this code, I was just looking through that and thinking maybe we should optimize that if-else logic. So if this, then we have nested if-else, and some of that code is repeated. So for example, this is totally identical in two blocks, then merge something, and I thought to extract that to the separate method, but then I stopped and realized that this code is pretty readable, and since it's not reused in any other like controllers or anything, sometimes it's fine to have some repeating and maybe not so optimized code if it's in the totally clear if-else conditions. So if this, else, and it's readable kind of like in English language. Again, if we change some variables here and there. So my advice is for those who like to optimize things and refactor things, you don't always have to do that. Sometimes good old if-else with a few lines of code is perfectly fine, even if the same code is repeated twice. What do you think? So yeah, these are all things I wanted to say about this code. You can consider that kind of a junior code review. What you would add to my opinion, maybe you notice something that you would improve more in this code. Let's discuss in the comments below. That's it for this time, and see you guys in other videos.